Pinocchio effect. No, this isn't a Disney story or something like that. We're talking about auditing, as always, the most boring topic on planet Earth. But if you're going to go audit a supplier in another country remotely, you need to be aware of the Pinocchio effect. So, what is the Pinocchio effect? When they lie, their nose grows. Really simple. But it's kind of hard to tell when somebody's lying, especially on a Zoom session when they're sharing their screen, but they're not sharing their video. 5%, I take that back. 7% of the information is only what you hear, the words they say. 38% is how they say it. And 55% is all the nonverbal stuff, the squirming and uncomfortableness and furtive glances at their counterpart in the room. All those things that sort of give away that you're lying to somebody. So if you're doing a remote audit, if they share their video, maybe you can pick up on some of those subtle nonverbal cues, but there's so many things you're not going to get, and you're not going to get all the other people in the room that are not on the video camera. So what can you do as an auditor to get all that other information to figure out whether your supplier has something to hide? So I'm going to give you a real scenario. I'm going to do an audit of a supplier that has a clean room. And, they're supposed to clean the clean room once in a while, maybe. Maybe they should change out those HEPA filters once a millennium. Maybe they should test the room to see if it's clean and do some particulate testing. Maybe some viable samples, maybe some non-viable samples. Maybe contact plates, maybe the spore plates that they spin around and they suck in all the air and see what grows on those. So how might I figure out what stuff are they actually doing here versus what their procedure says? Now, you could ask them for a copy of their procedure, and they could probably write down whatever they want. They could even ask somebody else to write it for them. They could copy somebody else's procedure and say, oh, this is what we do. This was good enough for that other company, so this is our procedure too, even though we don't do any of that stuff and don't even know what it says because it's in English, and we're speaking a totally different language here at our location. So procedure is a great place to start, but is that enough? No. So the next thing you might do is you might skip ahead and look for what metrics does the procedure say they're supposed to collect. And just deposit that in your memory. If it says they do trending of the particulate counts, then there should be some evidence of measuring those particulate counts and maybe a trend line somewhere with maybe an upper limit. Something like that. And maybe I might ask, do you have a microbiology lab in your building? It's a yes or no question. Now, as an auditor, I tell people never ask yes or no questions, but this is just to set them up. Do you have a microlab? Because if they do have a microlab, there's a whole lot of things they're going to have in their facility to support that microlab. 99% of the time, no, we don't have our own microlab. We have a vendor come in here, and they actually measure the stuff for us, and they take samples for us, and they send us a report. Okay, that's pretty normal. So how often do they come to your facility? That's an open-ended question, not that yes or no. How often do they come? Oh, they come once a quarter. Oh, okay. When was the last time they came? When? Another open-ended question. I think it was April. Yeah, April. Well, it's July now, so they skipped a quarter? Huh? And could I have a copy of the April report? Yeah. And whatever excuse they gave you for why they didn't show up in July, and it's now August, maybe we could say, what is the next time they're scheduled to come in? Okay, so they come up with a really good Maybe even somebody over here behind the scenes is quickly putting it on the calendar and, oh, here, we'll give you the date and everything. Okay. So let's dig a little deeper. Who is the vendor that does this? And are they on your approved supplier list? And can you provide a purchase order for that? Now, is any of that related to contamination control, controlled environment? Not directly, but this is a process approach audit where we can go travel the audit trail to other pieces of data that I need for other parts of the audit. So I need to look at supplier controls, and hey, I gotta find out if they're doing all these other things. So yeah, let's see if they have that information too. So I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna look for the name of the supplier, that they're approved and on the approved supplier list, that they have an agreement with the supplier, that they have an actual evaluation of that supplier, because they're supposed to reevaluate them periodically. And maybe if I'm really thinking they're lying to me, I'd be like, when you have people come into the building, they sign like a login sheet for, yeah. So where's that for the date that they came back in April? Silence. Yeah. So these are the ways that we see how long the nose will get for your vendor in the other country. Now, do you have to go that far to get confidence that your vendor is telling the truth and doing what they're supposed to do? You shouldn't. You should have a high confidence level after the third time that you've asked a follow-on question along your audit trail. So maybe the first time you're asking a yes or no question, or a simple open-ended question like when or how. And the second time, you might summarize some of the things they do and ask them, did I understand that correctly? And oh, yes, that's correct. Or no, you might actually purposely say something incorrectly and see if they correct you. A little tricky. And then the third time around, then you go for the jugular and like, can I see the record? A lot of times when they tell people how to interview people, they ask them to please say, what if this happened, or how is this done, or when is this happening? But an auditor, it's all about the record. So can you provide the record of that? May I see the record for that? Please provide the record for that. Can I see April's record? Can I see the approved supplier record? Once you've asked the third question, that third question should be, can I see the record? And verify that against the other facts. And now you know with probably over 99% certainty that this vendor is full of you know what, or the vendor is telling the truth, and you can trust the vendor. So next time you're doing a remote audit, you don't have to be there. I mean, it's great to be able to look on top of the cubbies in the gowning area and see how clean that is, and look under the cubbies and see how clean that is, and look in the corners of the clean room and see how clean those are. And that gives you a really good sense of how clean their clean room is versus what the data that was copied from another company says. But I don't need to do all that to figure out whether they're doing their job or not and whether they're telling the truth. My three-part question: first, when is this happening? Summarizing it back, but maybe leaving a little piece of information out, or twisting a little piece of information to see if they correct me, and then going for the jugular with, let me see that record. That's usually enough to get a very high confidence level. This person knows what they're talking about and is telling the truth or not. So I hope this helps you evaluate your own Pinocchio supplier next time you do an audit. If you have any other questions about how to do an audit of a supplier remotely, or an internal audit remotely, put your comments in the chat or in the description below in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, see you next week. Bye-bye.